The Criterion Collection continues to gift us these wonderful, more modern releases, these smaller releases, seemingly smaller releases from great directors we might even recognize. Today I'm talking about one from Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who is probably best known for Cure. And if you have not seen Cure, move this up your watch list. It is a fantastic film. But the film I'm discussing today is not Cure. The film I'm discussing is Cloud from 2024. This is a film that has shades of thriller, Hitchcock, 1940s noir. It even has a little bit of The Departed of all things in it. It is a rich film. It has some issues, but overall, this is something that I think most folks are going to enjoy who are a fan of this genre, provided they have the patience and they really sit with the film and sort of look at and study the images and get into the film in that way. And so this may not be a film for someone who wants something a little bit more along the lines of, let me think, Collateral. Okay, something that, it's a great film by Michael Mann that has more of the nonstop action with a very small exposition in the beginning. This thing is a slow burn. I liked it, and I'm going to point a few things out that I thought maybe I wasn't the biggest fan of, but overall, this is a pretty good film. I wonder to myself over time, will this become a classic? Will this be a film that will be studied? In the first half of this film, I think the composition of the images, the framing, that sort of thing, are going to be something that a lot of folks look at, that I would recommend people who are studying or looking into film, they give this their best attention. In the first few minutes, we find out this guy, Ryosuke Yoshi, he's working a couple of jobs. He's selling questionable goods. And so some of the beginning is he fencing these? Is he selling bogus merchandise online? Is he doing that for someone else? There were a lot of questions about exactly what it is he's involved with. It's a pretty good hook early on. And if you have any complaints about that not being there, that quick sort of anticipation being built for the viewer, I don't really think that's the case. I was very intrigued by that. He also has a boring factory job, and we get to see very quickly what happens with that factory job. He wants something more. He wants to reach bigger. And the images in this film are so fascinating, especially some of the ones that don't seem like they should be. For example, when he's selling some of these goods, right? And I've told you it's kind of unclear as to what they might even be. It's actually part of the point. There are these boxes, and they're all over the place in the film, and they feel like just anything and all could be in there. For all you care, it could be empty styrofoam. Because what's in the boxes isn't really important. It feels empty. These are boxes that are put on these like sterile shelves in these gray rooms that still look pretty good. This is a good looking film. But it's that kind of image that this director allows to build this eerie, oddly tense atmosphere. Especially there's one sequence where you see some of these boxes, the room feels lived in, and it's subtle, but there's someone kind of hanging below the window, and you sort of look down and you wonder what's up with that. Feels like something straight out of Hitchcock. That's someone that I know this director had a little bit of experience with. This director also, you will really be able to tell, has been influenced by Yasujiro Ozu. If you read more about this director, you will find that to be true. Early on, something I like that some films don't do, especially action-oriented films, which I've said this film is not all action. There's a lot of character build-up. That's what it does. We really learn about this character, his girlfriend, and his assistant. So those three characters end up being pretty important, as do others involved with this business. And with the theft parts of the film and the petty theft and the money, some of you who are a fan of Robert Bresson might feel a little bit of overlap with a film he did, a great film, beautiful, wonderful film, L'Argent. You may see some of that in there. So if you did, you'll have to let me know if you've seen it. But, obviously you've seen it before the review. And overall, I think that part of the film, that first, say, half, I loved that. I thought that was some of the best, most original, fun, interesting character building. I'm a sucker for a guy about people who don't have a lot of money trying to build it out of nothing, right? It's the Goodfellas story, so to speak. A little bit less flashy than that. This film is not flashy at all, yet it's still really pretty. Of course, there's some great sequences out in the woods that look beautiful, but I'm really drawn to that kind of story. And the economic crushing reality is all over the place in this film, and I like that. Some have called it an anti-capitalism critique. I don't know. I didn't find the film to be that political at all, really. It just, but that having been said, then there's the action parts, and there's some nuance to discussing those because they are like the when we get into guns and gunfire and double crosses and all this sort of thing, that part is like the actual action looks really cool, and it's believable, interesting, intriguing action. You know, there's something to be said for movies like John Wick where you see Keanu Reeves slice through everything. This is clumsy action. This is believable. What isn't believable, oddly enough, is not the action. It's some of the decisions the characters will make. Someone will just stay somewhere, not do a thing that logically even an inexperienced person in that situation would probably do or at least think about. There's a lot of convenient plot armor here, and you know, when I'm evaluating these films, I'm always thinking, how much does that bring the experience down? And for me, it kept this film from being truly one of the greats in this genre because you're watching it and you're like, there's no way. There's no way he wouldn't, like, it's just, it gets to you a little bit. I'm not talking complete lack of logic from the characters. I'm just saying there's some parts that you're like, yeah, that's a little too convenient, you know? And maybe this screenplay, maybe some of the loose ends, tied up ends, maybe all that sort of thing needed some editing. But I think you're going to notice that if you see the film. And if you've seen the film, you might see a little bit of what I'm talking about. But the actual like gunfight, thriller stuff, the actual look of it, the texture of it, all that's really good. And this is a good director who I think had that vision. I just wanted a little bit more editing around the story, so to speak, to make certain parts a little bit more believable. Because it's strange when the plot is a little bit less believable than what you're actually seeing in terms of the action. A lot of times, the action's completely unbelievable. And you're like, that wouldn't happen that way. But I don't know. It's just something that I thought as I watched it. So I won't be surprised if this ends up being a classic. But I also won't be surprised if this is kind of seen as a lesser but good work from this director. I would say, absolutely see this with the understanding that it's a slow burn with some parts that are going to have some thriller, double crossing, film noir. You're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff. But it's not all the way through, and it might be too slow for some audiences. Of course, most people that watch the Criterion Collection are fine with what I would call a deliberate pace, which is what you have here. I will say that for a while in this film, I was anticipating this being one of those 5 stars that I talked about, but it didn't quite get there. Just a few of those reservations. So if you already like this kind of genre, you might want to just get it. You know, if I found a copy of this for $10, I would buy it. I don't know if I'd spend like 20, right? I don't know if I'd do that in a sale, but you know, if I found a few bucks a copy, like a Blu-ray, I would get it. So it's pretty good. Like, it's just not, it's more like, when I think about rating and evaluating movies, let's say a 4 out of 5, right? Strong, could have been better, but definitely a really cool film. And I'm so glad this director is with us in this collection. So if you liked the video and found it to be helpful and you want to click a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. And subscribe to Cody in the Cinema.